Good morning, ladies. Welcome to paradise. I'm sitting out here on a balcony with my cup of morning coffee in Florida. Yep, I'm not in Minnesota with you girls. I've come down with Kent. We're taking a few days away so he can write more on a book that God's put in his soul. And it's really hard to find time to write on this book unless you do take these intentional getaways. So this is what we're doing this week. I'm his editor. He writes, and I get to look at what he's written and edit it. But I thought I'd just quickly get on here and try to start our dialogue about these questions, because by tomorrow or Friday, I'd really like us to be working on the second half of the page under the red line where we're actually taking steps. And I gotta admit, step one, what are you leaving behind? I mean, that's a big question, isn't it? And I feel like I have a little bit of an advantage over you girls because I've kind of gotten to stop, take a breather, sit on a beautiful balcony and reflect on this question. And we don't always get those times, do we? And so I gotta admit, it took me a few days to think this through and really come up with what it was I wanted to leave behind. So know that I sympathize with you if your life is just full and you've had a hard time coming up with those answers. So let's look at this question. What I'm going to do this morning is just share what I felt like God showed me that I need to leave behind, and hopefully this will spur some dialogue. I noticed that Linda Lang has jumped on and texted something. No, I'm not expecting all of you to get on and do a video. I just thought I'd start this morning, share mine, and hopefully that will stir some transparency from the rest of us sharing. The question is, what's the thing that has been keeping you from living a life that truly reflects a belief in God and a belief that He is who He says He is? And then there were three questions. What are you leaving behind? What are you most afraid of in leaving this behind? And if that fear, what you're afraid of, became a reality, would you be okay? So here's what I came up with. I feel like what God's asking me to leave behind is the safety of my box. Now let me explain my box. I divide it into three things. My box consists of my own self-limitations, how I limit myself, the parameters of what I say I can and can't do. And I think that stops me a lot of times because I don't feel like I can do something. So it's something I put on myself. It's nobody else, it's myself saying, you can't do that. The second thing that is my box is it's my security zone. It's like my safety blanket. It's where I feel most comfortable. And so stepping out of that security zone is scary. And the third thing about this safety box that I feel like I'm supposed to leave behind is the fear of others. So, people's expectations of me, people's rejection of me. And Linda wrote fear of man, and I identify with that. I think it's a fear of man. And she also wrote self-limitation. So isn't it interesting that I think we limit ourselves a lot of times? And with that fear of people, I might include limitations others put on me. So there is my own self thinking I can't do it. Then there's other people that may say you can't do it. And so I let that limit me. What am I most afraid of in leaving my safety box behind? Stepping out of these things of self-limitation, feeling secure, fear of others. Well, risk of failure. I could believe God told me to do something or try something new or go for a passion or a dream and fail. So there's that risk of failure. I'm afraid of that. When I think of my security zone, stepping out of that, it's a range from discomfort to outright pain and suffering. I don't like pain and suffering. I don't even like to be uncomfortable. So there's that I'm afraid of. And the third thing, when I talk about the fear of man, what I'm afraid of in leaving this behind, if I step out of that and don't let fear of man stop me, what could happen? Disapproval, criticism from others, right down to outright rejection from someone. And then the question is, if that fear were to become a reality, would you be okay? So I thought about that. I went, well, initially, no. I'd probably be devastated. I'm not sure I'd be okay. I mean, I can think of all kinds of scenarios where I go, I'm not okay. But you know, when I thought about it, what did we learn in the videos we watched at the If Gathering? It's that big question of, will you trust him? So if I trust that God is at work in my life, that God is guiding me, that I'm walking with Jesus hand in hand, and that he's going to work everything out for my good and for his glory, even if there's pain and suffering in it, even if there's rejection of others in it. I mean, he suffered some of the greatest rejection, right? So yes, I think I will be okay in leaving this behind. And if you look at the bottom of your page, there were two scriptures that I've already been kind of ruminating on. I love them both, Deuteronomy 31-10 and Philippians 3:13-15. And two things I pulled out from those. Deuteronomy 30:10, actually, there's a portion that says God's talking to his children, the children of Israel, and he's saying, return to him with all your heart and all your soul. And I think of, it was Jill Briscoe's final talk that we had in our conference, where she talked about, are you half-hearted or are you wholehearted? And so the question for me is, will I give God all my heart? Will I follow him wholeheartedly with my whole soul as I step out of my safety box? Am I willing to do that? Because it's half-hearted of me to sit in my box, putting limitations on myself, staying within my comfort zone, and fearing others. So making sure I don't do anything that's going to upset the status quo or possibly bring criticism on me. Boy, that's convicting. And then in Philippians 3:13, I love what Paul said, forgetting what is behind and reaching toward what is ahead. So I'm excited as I think about stepping out of this safety box I tend to live in and reaching towards the goal of what God has for me in my life, if I'm willing to leave that behind. That's what I'm dealing with, ladies. And in the next couple of days, I'm going to want us to start working on those tangible next steps that will help me leave my thing behind. And so I'd love to hear from you. What is it that God's asking you to leave behind? And then by Friday, let's say by Friday, we're going to start working on the second half of the page, because by Sunday, I'd like us to start on step 2. So this has been way too long, but I'm done with mine. And now you can light up that page with your texts and your input on what God's been speaking to you. I love all of you. There's not a big group of us, so let's go for this. Have a wonderful day.